In today's report, we have Doug Ford providing his thoughts on Donald Trump's 35% tariff. Doug Ford is all about fight, fight, fight. He never thinks before he says something. We're going to take a look at his press conference. Then I'm going to show you Dominic Leblanc. He's in Washington, D.C. He's the guy leading the negotiations with Lutnick, and he provided an update today. I'm going to break the story to you. Let's go. We're going to start the show off with Doug Ford. What a real piece of work this man is.
With President Trump taking direct aim at our economy, his goal is to take every single business out of our country, out of our province, and bring it down to the U.S. But I'll tell you, I will fight like I've never fought before, and we're going to continue fighting against President Trump and his radical views. You know it's a problem with President Trump. And, you know, we're united. First of all, I've never seen this country more united, ever, in all my...
Let's just put it this way. 50% of the population voted for the Conservatives, and the other 50% voted for the Liberals. So I don't know what he's talking about united. We are not.
Years of being in politics, and it's a great feeling, all provinces, territories, municipalities, and the federal government. But, you know, Prime Minister Carney's trying his best, but this guy will say something one day, and he'll wake up, and the cheese slips off the cracker, and then all of a sudden he goes the other way. And you're thinking, how do you deal with a guy like this?
You know what? Doug Ford is exactly describing himself. One day he wakes up and he's going to cut the power on the United States. And then the next day he's like, oh, we're best friends again.
Are we hoping that we can get a deal with zero tariffs? Yes. But I always say how we can kick back, and it's not the American people kick back at President Trump. Let's start onshoring everything, absolutely everything we possibly can. Like I-beams, those big steel I-beams. I didn't realize we don't make them here until found out during the trade deal. Or the rails that are beautiful, their cars are going to be made, sorry, the streetcars are going to be made down the street. We don't make the rails, so we need to start making rails and start making sure that we make those steel I-beams and aluminum cans. Aluminum cans are my favorite. The Coke, the Pepsis, all the other beverages, the Molsons, the Labatt's, the craft brewers. We're the kings of aluminum in Quebec. They ship the aluminum down, 25% tariff. They get printed and formed, 25% back tariffs. So my question was, why aren't we making aluminum cans here? Now we're going to be making aluminum cans. They're going to lose $1 billion worth of business in the U.S. And same with tin cans from Dofasco. Ship it down to the U.S., they get formed. I had a meeting with the big users of the tins. Now we're bringing a line up here, and they're going to be losing out on about 1.3 billion cans just on the tin cans. But we can build anything here. We're an
I just want to tell everybody. So the U.S. economy is estimated to be $30 trillion. Canada's economy is $2.2 trillion, maybe. So when he's talking about $1.3 billion worth of money, that's like a penny. Would you pick up a penny on the side of the road? Well, maybe. It might be good luck, but that's about it.
Economic powerhouse. You know, folks, we don't have to take a back seat to anyone in the world, and we sure the heck don't have to take a back seat to President Trump. He needs to remember, yes, they're our number one customer, but we're their number one customer. You hear about all these deals he's making, and they're good countries, Japan and Korea. But I'll give you an example. With Japan, he said he made this beautiful deal and everything, and God bless him. But they buy $79 billion worth of products, U.S., off of the U.S. Canada buys $359 billion U.S. off the folks south of the border. 9 million Americans wake up every single morning to produce a widget or a good just for Ontario alone. Those 9 million jobs are in jeopardy right now. We buy more products off the U.S. than Japan, Korea, China, the UK, and France combined. So I wouldn't roll over, and I've told the Prime Minister, do not roll over, hit that guy back as hard as we possibly can. And
Oh, great. That's definitely going to win this trade war. Hit him back as hard as you can. You know, Doug Ford, if he hits us just with his pinky finger, Canada would cease to exist. Just like Justin Trudeau described it to Donald Trump, Canada wouldn't even be around anymore.
that's what we need to do. And we can do it. We can build anything here in Canada, absolutely anything. So we're going to win this thing. You know, one way or another. We aren't going to go down and we aren't going to roll over. We'll keep fighting every single day.
So the one thing I do agree with him is we have to diversify our trade. But one thing we need to actually do is get rid of the Liberal government. Because they're the ones that put us in a position where we're so weak and dependent on the US. 10 years of Liberals going after Alberta and the energy industry. And now we're trying to do EV mandates at a time where our auto industry is pleading with our government saying, we can't do 20% next year. Just scrap this thing so that we can save the industry. They're like, no, we're going to continue to proceed with the EV mandate. The problems we have in Canada are made in Canada. Has nothing to do with Donald Trump. We cannot stand on our own 2 feet. We have Dominic Leblanc in Washington, D.C. He's provided us an update.
Next week, I'll be in Ottawa participating with the Prime Minister in consultations, for example, with Métis Nations around getting major projects done quickly. Our focus is going to turn to what we need to do to ensure that key sectors of the Canadian economy, steel, aluminum, automobiles, lumber, are able to go through this difficult period with these sectoral tariffs applying, as they do around the world. We're going to focus on what's necessary to support those businesses and focus on the things we need to do to build one Canadian economy and get major nation-building projects done quickly.
What seems to be the sticking point in the negotiations?
But not one economic relationship with the United States is like another. So you see different countries conclude agreements with different levels of specificity because their conversations are different than all the other countries. So Canada has one of the most integrated economic relationships with the United States. That's why the sectoral tariffs are necessarily so difficult for us, but the Government of Canada will do what we have to do to support those industries. My conversations with Secretary Lutnick have been constructive. We've learned a lot this week again of what the Americans are concerned about and where the opportunity might be at the right moment to get the best deal for Canadian workers and Canadian businesses. We've said many times, the Prime Minister's repeated it, that we're not going to accept any deal because of an arbitrary timeline that the Americans set. We're going to do the work that's necessary.
Isn't it Mark Carney that set 2 timelines? He did one earlier in June saying that we're going to get this amazing trade deal with the United States. And then after the G7, he said we'll have a trade deal done by July 21st. And then instead, Donald Trump said we're going to have an August 1st deadline. And they didn't, and we haven't reached that August 1st deadline. Like the deal didn't reach the August 1st deadline. So instead, we got a 35% tariff. Imagine this pace of negotiation, how slow it's been. And in the fall, we need to start looking at the renegotiation of CUSMA. This is problematic.
To get the best deal for the country. If yesterday afternoon that deal wasn't clearly on the table, then we'll continue to talk to the Americans. I agreed with Secretary Lutnick that we'd talk on the phone next week and figure out a chance to get together again later in August. But in the meantime, we have important work to do at home, building the resilience.
Holy crap. Next week, he's going to have a meeting with Lutnick and then potentially another one by the end of August. This means the 35% tariff is baked in. Nothing they're going to do, and they're not moving on it. This is breaking information.
Of the Canadian economy. Canadians elected us to get major projects done quickly. So that's going to be obviously a huge focus in the coming weeks and months.
What's your message to Canadians who are reading the news today and they're worried about their jobs and things potentially costing more because of these tariffs?
I think Canadians need to understand that the Prime Minister has been clear from the very beginning that the government will do what is necessary to support sectors of the Canadian economy and workers that are facing an unjustified trade action by the United States. We're working obviously with provinces.
Yeah, one of the problems here is we have zero budget, no budget in sight. So how much is he going to inject into these sectors?
And territories in a very collaborative way to ensure that we have the right series of measures to support Canadian businesses and workers. But we've also said to Canadians that we can give ourselves a lot more than any other foreign country can take away. So we can build big things in the Canadian economy in the coming months, in the coming years. We can do.
By the way, they've been saying they're going to build big things for the last 11 years. What have they built? Record crime, record unemployment, record everything is a record in Canada. We have homeless record. We have the most expensive housing record. We have the most debt to GDP record, household debt to GDP. Everything is a record in Canada, and it's all being provided by our wonderful Liberal government. And now they're saying they're going to build back better. We have not one project of national interest outlined. Not one. How could we be building something that is not on a list yet? They haven't provided us with anything.
Do so with Canadian labor and Canadian workers and Canadian steel and Canadian aluminum.
Just like the ferries that BC Ferries is purchasing with China steel, with China workers. Is that what we're doing? Because that should have been built in Canada. They should have figured that one out.
And we can also, the rest of the world is knocking at Canada's door to increase their trading opportunities with us. Every international trip the Prime Minister goes on, he comes back and tells us that international businesses and other foreign heads of government are anxious to collaborate with Canada.
All right, when he says this, there's zero evidence to back his claim. Show us the data. Give us the numbers. Which country said they want to work with us? How much money are they going to invest in this country? This is all smoke and mirrors.
We were elected on a mandate to build the strongest economy in the G7. That comes from diversifying our trading relationships, building big projects at home, but recognizing that the United States will continue to be our neighbor, continue to be our most important economic and security partner. So we need to walk and chew gum at the same time. We need to be able to have constructive conversations.
This is the most honest thing he said in the entire interview. This is what we need to talk about. We can't do anything about where we are in the world. We are next door neighbors with the United States. We share similar cultures. We share the border, the longest border on planet Earth. Our economies are intertwined. We need to work together. And the question is the Liberal Party going to be able to negotiate with Donald Trump? That's the real question. They're elected to do so. As of right now, we have a 35% tariff, and we're rapidly going towards a renegotiation of CUSMA.
With them, do what's necessary in the best interest of the Canadian economy, but be less dependent and more resilient on our own.
Do you know when you're coming back to Washington?
I would expect I'll be back later in August. As I say, I would expect to talk to Howard Lutnick next week. He and I agreed that we'd get together in the coming weeks. I know Ambassador Hillman is continuing to talk to counterparts in the American administration and on Capitol Hill. So the doors aren't closed, the doors are open, the conversations are ongoing, and we'll do the work necessary to get the right deal for Canadians, not simply any deal.
I want to provide all of you with this quick update because we just heard from Dominic Leblanc. He's the one that's negotiating, the lead negotiator with Lutnick in Washington, D.C. I'm a little bit concerned that they're going to have a phone call next week, and maybe, just maybe, he's going to head back to Washington, D.C. later on in August. Is this the type of negotiation you are looking for? Maybe go back to Washington It looks like these 35% tariffs are here to stay. We're going to find out. I'll see you on the next report.